time. So my first question is, I know that you call them educator competencies at ASH. What was the reason that you identified that you needed educator competencies and standards at ASH and embarked on this work in the beginning?
So I'd say this actually happened quite a while ago. We were having conversations with the faculty, and we had a mission and vision that we felt was really kind of progressive and moving us forward, kind of simplified the goals. And teachers kept asking us, but what does this mean? Like, how do you materialize that? How do you kind of quantify that, or kind of put it into maybe steps that we can take? And so we identified a framework, a generic framework that was research-based, but wasn't as specific. It wasn't going to give us the same framework that we have right now in the educator competencies. So that was the stage one. We identified this general framework that was research-driven. We took that and we went through a process. So we put it into people's hands, and we worked with a consultant. We took that framework and we asked teachers, and the consultant helped us get people on board from different parts of our school, educators, and we broke it into domains. And those domains then became those cornerstones of the educator competencies. Do you want to keep going? Because I know Laura worked in a different part of this than I did, but that was the beginning, was teachers kind of asking questions like, great mission and vision, really progressive, but how do we do that?
So it's like a translation document in a way, like here's the mission and vision, which is very forward thinking and often abstract.
Yes.
And conceptual. So kind of taking that and saying, all right, now what does this look like in the classroom?
Yep.
Okay. And the framework that we started with was, there were components of it that were super US centric. And so we needed to figure out what that interpretation looked like for ASH. And through the process, we also crosswalked the framework with other frameworks to identify, were there areas that were missing, what was really important to us and what wasn't apparent in the framework. So throughout that process, as David mentioned, we identified 5 domains or overarching educator competencies, which formed the foundation of our educator competency framework.
So essentially what you did in comparing your work to the work that has come around the international standards of practice is, whereas, the international standards of practice are available on the TIE and PTC website, you basically had to create that for yourself. So you took the first step yourself to get to what are like a bespoke set of standards for ASH to use with your teachers. Is that a correct sort of comparison of the two?
And I think they fit our school in the context that we're in really closely. We kind of mirrored we obviously reflected some of the practices in the school that had been going on that we wanted to capture. And so I think that was really important to make sure, an example being our DEI work. We want to make sure that lived somewhere in the framework, right? That's work we were doing that might not live somewhere else in somebody else's framework.
Right.
Prepackaged.
Right. I think that's true. And I think that's what we've tried to do with the international standards of practice, is make them more bespoke for international schools, knowing that our schools are all really engaged in DEI work. And you did very similar things to make sure you're kind of covering all your bases in the ways that are distinctive for being an international school in that work. So tell me a little bit about how they're set up. Like, what's the system that you've created around the educator competency? So it goes mission, vision, now these domains, where does it go from there?
So you want to go?
Yeah, so we have these 5 overarching domains or competencies, and embedded within those competencies are our indicators. And for each of those competencies, there are either 2 or 3 indicators that are associated with each competency. And then we've actually done the work to unpack each of those indicators into look-fors or key strategies. So when we're working with teachers and we're looking at, how this presents in a classroom, there are a set of very clear key strategies or look-fors that teachers are able to work with. And so David and I have been having conversations with teachers this year around their goals that are centered around the educator competencies. And by having these competencies unpacked into indicators and associated look-fors or strategies has allowed us to be able to share a common language with our faculty, and also to be able to support teachers through working with some of those strategies throughout the year.
So it's
So
something.
Go ahead.
Well, it's something I was going to add to that. I think one of the interesting things is we had I'm not sure if you'd call this something traditional from Europe, but we had an appraisal cycle that we only talk to teachers every 3 years once you're on an indefinite contract. And what we initiated this year, because we had the educator competencies sitting there as kind of a prototype of what we hope to see in the future, we gave teachers the option. And I had teachers say to me, from the first time I saw these, I actually was really compelled by them, and I wanted to integrate them in my teaching. And it helped me kind of see what I wanted to do with my students. And I think what to me, I love the idea that it's like a call in, because we did a round, Laura and I did a round in school where we said, we're going to stop in every classroom and we're going to look through this one domain. And when we did that, we actually highlighted some practices that I probably wouldn't even have recognized as being there. We looked at student-centered as one of our competencies. And by using the look-fors, we could always find somebody doing something student-centered. And then it actually highlighted some really unique practices that we didn't even know were going on in our classrooms. So to me, it built excitement from us from getting to kind of pull that out of classes, and we shared that out with faculty. We actually showed them like highlights, and the staff was like, we want more. We want, like, what are your highlights from these walks? So that's stage one. And I think just having the goal setting based around them was really powerful, because they give a wide berth of teachers saying, hey, I want to look at myself through the lens of caring, for example. And then they get to dig in through the look-fors, like Laura mentioned, how we develop those. And they get to see, what does this mean in different domains or different indicators under caring? And so I think it just gave really real clarity for us on what we're looking for in classes, how teachers can highlight good things and good practices that are going on in their class, and build some excitement.